The notification arrived at exactly 2:14 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember the time because I was staring at the clock on the wall of the conference room, praying for the second hand to move faster. I was sitting in the middle of a quarterly budget review, surrounded by colleagues discussing profit margins and overhead costs. My boss, Mr. Henderson, was pointing a laser pointer at a projection screen, droning on about optimizing workflow. It was the kind of mundane, boring afternoon that usually signals safety. Then, my phone buzzed against the mahogany table. It wasn't a text message vibration. It was an email notification. I glanced down, expecting a message from the school about a bake sale or maybe a spam alert about extended car warranties. Instead, I saw my husband's name, Greg. The subject line was 2 words that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. The loan. Greg never emailed me. We texted memes. We called to ask what was for dinner. We left sticky notes on the fridge. Formal emails were reserved for tax season or insurance paperwork. A cold pit formed in my stomach. I slid the phone into my lap, hiding it under the table, and opened the message. It was 1 sentence. Just 1 line of text that would dismantle my entire life. Please ensure the loan repayment continues as scheduled. I won't be contributing anymore. I stared at the screen. I blinked, sure that I had misread it. Loan repayment? Won't be contributing? I felt the blood drain from my face. My heart began to hammer against my ribs like a trapped bird. I stood up, interrupting Mr. Henderson mid-sentence. I have to take this, I stammered. I didn't wait for permission. I grabbed my phone and walked out of the conference room, my heels clicking loudly against the tile floor of the hallway. I dialed Greg's number. My hands were shaking so violently I almost dropped the phone. He answered on the second ring. His voice wasn't panicked. He didn't sound like a man in crisis. He sounded disturbingly calm, almost cheerful, like he was ordering a pizza. "Oh, hey, Hannah," he said. "You got the email?" "Greg?" I whispered, leaning against the cold wall of the corridor for support. "What is this? What do you mean you aren't contributing? Where are you?" "Sorry about the abruptness," he said, and I could hear the wind rushing in the background, like he was driving with the windows down. "I didn't want a scene. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Hannah. I've realized that us, it isn't working anymore. I've fallen for someone else. Someone who really gets me. We've decided to start a new life together, starting today." The air left my lungs. The hallway seemed to spin. You're leaving? For another woman?" "Yes. Her name is Mandy," he said casually. "And about the van, I'm taking the camper. It's perfect for the road trip we're planning. Since the loan is entirely in your name, remember, because of my credit score, the bank will be looking to you for payments. Consider it your contribution to my happiness." "You can't do that!" I gasped, my voice rising to a shout. "That's a $35,000 vehicle, Greg! It's in my name!" "I already did," he laughed. "The keys are with me. The papers are with me. Don't worry, I'll file the divorce papers once we get settled somewhere nice. Bye, Hannah." "Greg, wait! You can't just—" Click. The line went dead. I stood there in the sterile white hallway. Before I tell you how my 10-year-old son turned into a detective and tracked down his father in the middle of a forest, I have to ask you a question. Have you ever trusted someone completely? I don't remember leaving the office. I don't remember walking to the parking lot or starting my sedan. The drive home was a blur of tears and honking horns. My name is Hannah. I am 35 years old. Until that afternoon, I thought I was part of a stable, happy team. We were a family of 3, me, Greg, and our 10-year-old son, Ryan. Ryan is the light of my life. He isn't like other kids. While his classmates are obsessed with TikTok dances or video games, Ryan reads scientific papers on my laptop. He asks questions about economics, physics, and engineering. He is observant, quiet, and terrifyingly smart for his age. Greg, on the other hand, was the chaos in our lives. He was charming, yes, but unstable. He bounced between jobs every 6 months, always claiming his bosses didn't get his vision or that the work was beneath him. I was the anchor. I worked full-time in corporate finance to keep the lights on. For the past 3 years, however, Greg had finally held down a steady job. I thought, foolishly, that we were finally turning a corner. We had even decided to buy a camper van, a $35,000 luxury specifically designed for family trips, to make memories and bond as a family. Because Greg's credit score was in the gutter from his years of unemployment, the finance company refused to put his name on the loan. I had to sign for it. The debt was 100% mine. I pulled into our driveway, my tires screeching on the asphalt. The first thing I noticed was the empty space. The spot where the shiny, cream-colored camper van had stood yesterday was empty. There were just tire tracks in the dirt, mocking me. I ran inside, throwing my purse on the floor. "Greg!" I screamed, checking the bedroom, the bathroom, the basement. The house was silent. I ran to the bedroom closet. His side was empty. His clothes were gone. His shoes were gone. Even his electric toothbrush was missing from the bathroom counter. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was a calculated evacuation. I ran to the study and yanked open the bottom drawer of the desk. That's where we kept our important documents. Years ago, during a particularly bad fight, we had printed out divorce papers but never signed them. Greg had mentioned them on the phone. The folder was empty. Panic seized me. If he took the papers, what else did he take? I scrambled for my laptop, my fingers fumbling as I typed in the password for our online banking. We had a joint savings account. This was money I had saved before I even met Greg. It was my safety net. It was Ryan's college fund. It was $20,000 of blood, sweat, and tears. The page loaded. I stared at the numbers, praying it was a glitch. Available balance, $33.90. He hadn't just left. He had gutted us. He had transferred everything out that morning, likely while I was pouring my coffee and making him toast. He had smiled at me, kissed me on the cheek, and then wiped us clean. I sank to the floor, wrapping my arms around my knees. I couldn't scream. I couldn't cry. I just sat there, rocking back and forth, trying to calculate how I was going to pay a mortgage, a $35,000 car loan for a car I didn't have, and buy groceries on $33. "Mom?" I froze. I hadn't heard the front door open. Ryan was standing in the doorway of the study, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked at me, sitting on the floor, disheveled, pale, and then he looked at the open, empty drawer. "Mom, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice steady but concerned. "You haven't been eating much lately, and now you're on the floor. Are you okay?" I wiped my face quickly, forcing a smile that felt like it was cracking my skin. "I'm fine, honey, just tired. Maybe a little dizziness." Ryan didn't smile back. He walked over and stood in front of me. "Mom," he said softly, "when people lie, they look up and to the right. You just did that." I sighed, dropping the act. There was no point in lying to him. He noticed everything. "Dad hasn't been home for 3 days," Ryan said, "and his stuff is gone. Did something happen?" I took a deep breath. Yes, Ryan. Your father, he left. He decided he wants to live somewhere else for a while. I see, Ryan said. He didn't cry. He didn't throw a tantrum. He just nodded, looking older than his 10 years. It's just like Dad to do something like that. He always runs away when things get hard. Aren't you sad? I asked, my heart breaking for him. I understood from how things were going lately, he said simply. I'm not surprised. But Mom, we need to worry about you. For the next 2 weeks, I tried to be strong. I tried to handle the fallout. I called the police, but they told me that since we were still legally married and the money was in a joint account, it was a civil matter. They couldn't arrest him for taking money from an account his name was on. As for the van, since the loan was in my name, but he was my husband, reporting it stolen was complicated without a formal divorce decree. I was trapped in a bureaucratic nightmare. I worked double shifts at the office, trying to make up for the lost savings. I skipped meals to save money for Ryan's lunch. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Greg's face, laughing as he drove my van into the sunset with another woman. The stress was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. My heart would palpitate randomly. My hands would shake. Then came the training session. I was standing in front of my team in the presentation room, explaining a new software update. The room was warm. Too warm. And if you look at the Q3 projections, I started to say, but the words got stuck in my throat. The room suddenly tilted sideways. The faces of my colleagues blurred into a smear of beige and gray. The floor rushed up to meet me. "Hannah!" someone shouted. "Sorry," I mumbled, my tongue feeling thick and heavy. I can't stand up." Darkness swallowed me. When I woke up, the only sound was the rhythmic beep, beep, beep of a machine. I opened my eyes to a white ceiling and the smell of antiseptic. A hospital room. A doctor was standing by the bed, looking at a chart. When he saw I was awake, his expression remained serious. "Mrs. Davidson," he said gently, "you collapsed from severe exhaustion and stress-induced cardiac strain. Your body has essentially gone on strike. We ran some tests. You have developed a severe arrhythmia due to extreme stress. We need to perform surgery to correct it, or you are at risk of a major cardiac event." Tears leaked out of my eyes. Surgery? I couldn't afford surgery. I couldn't afford the ambulance ride that brought me here. I was pathetic. My husband had discarded me like trash, stolen my future, and now my body was failing too. Suddenly, the door burst open. "Mom!" Ryan rushed in, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. It was the first time since Greg left that I had seen him look like a scared little boy. "Mom, what happened?" He grabbed my hand, squeezing it tight. "The school called. They said you collapsed. Is it serious? You're not going to die, right?" I looked at him, my brilliant, kind, innocent son. If I died, he would be left with Greg. Or worse, the foster system. "Of course not," I whispered, squeezing his hand back. "I wouldn't leave you alone, Ryan. I promise." "That's good," he exhaled, his shoulders slumping as the tension left his small body. Really, when I heard, my heart nearly stopped. I made a vow in that hospital bed. I would get better. I would survive this surgery, and I would get justice. Not for me, but for him. I spent a month in the hospital recovering. It was a long, slow process. By the time I was discharged, the world had moved on, but my problems had multiplied. I walked into our house, moving slowly, still weak. Ryan carried my bag. I went to the mailbox and pulled out a stack of envelopes. They were all the same. Final notice. Past due. Loan default warning. The bank wanted their money for the van. The van Greg was driving across the country with his mistress. I checked my account balance again on my phone. I had been hoping for a miracle, maybe a deposit from Greg out of guilt. But the number stared back at me. $33.90. I sat on the couch, the letters spilling from my hands onto the floor. The hopelessness crashed over me like a wave. "Ryan," I said, my voice trembling, "your father didn't just leave. He took the car. He took the savings. He took everything. I can't work yet because of the surgery recovery. We have no money. I'm at a loss." Ryan sat next to me. He picked up one of the demand letters and read it. Then he put it down and looked me in the eye. He didn't look despairing. He looked determined. "Then I'll deliver newspapers," he said firmly. "I'll search the internet to see if there's coding work or data entry I can do. I can help, Mom." I managed a weak smile, brushing the hair out of his eyes. "You're 10, honey. You shouldn't have to worry about this. I'll figure it out. I just need to change my mindset. I can't afford to be weak anymore." Ryan studied my face for a moment. Then, a strange, calculated look entered his eyes. He didn't look like a child anymore. He looked like a grand master staring at a chessboard. "Mom," he said, "let's stop worrying about pennies. Let's plan how to get the car back from Dad." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Ryan, we don't even know where he is. He blocked my number. He deleted his social media. He could be in Mexico for all we know. The police won't help us find him because it's a civil dispute." "The camper van is in your name, right?" Ryan asked. "Yes, that's the problem. I own the debt." "And you own the car," Ryan corrected, "which means you have the right to take it back." "But we can't find him." Ryan smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a smile that promised retribution. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his smartphone, a kid-safe model we had bought him a month before Greg left, back when we went on a family hiking trip. "Do you remember when we bought this?" Ryan asked. "You and Dad were worried I would get lost on the trail." "Yes?" I said, confused. "We installed a GPS tracking app so we could see your location." "Exactly," Ryan said. He tapped the screen and turned the phone toward me. "But do you remember the other part? We installed the app on Dad's phone too, so I could see where he was if we got separated." My mouth fell open. I had completely forgotten. "I've been watching him," Ryan said calmly. "He's been moving around a lot for the past month, but for the last 3 days, he's been stationary." He zoomed in on the map. A blinking blue dot hovered over a green area. "He's at the Forest Park campsite," Ryan said. "It's less than 2 hours away." I stared at the dot. My husband. The thief. He was right there. "But, Ryan," I hesitated, "even if we go there, what if he just runs? What if he drives away, or lies to us?" Ryan's grin widened. "Don't worry, Mom. While you were in the hospital, I took precautions." "Precautions?" I asked. "What did you do?" Ryan leaned back, crossing his arms. "I went to Dad's old office after school one day. I cried. I told them Dad abandoned us and my mom collapsed from the stress. His co-workers were furious. They told me everything. He ran off with a new employee named Mandy. They even gave me her parents' address." I looked at my son in awe. You found out who the mistress is?" "Mandy," Ryan confirmed. "And I know where her parents live. And I know where Dad is." "So, are we going to go get our life back, or not?" I felt a surge of energy I hadn't felt in months. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard anger. "Get your shoes, Ryan," I said, standing up. "We're going camping." We drove for 2 hours. The sun began to set, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. I gripped the steering wheel of my old sedan until my knuckles turned white. Ryan sat in the passenger seat, navigating, his face illuminated by the blue light of his phone. "Take the next left," he instructed. "We're almost there." We turned onto a gravel road leading into the Forest Park campsite. My heart was pounding, not from fear, but from anticipation. "There," Ryan pointed. And there it was. My cream-colored $35,000 camper van. It was parked near a fire pit, looking pristine and mocking. But that wasn't the only thing there. A police cruiser was parked right in front of the van, blocking it in. Its red and blue lights were flashing silently, cutting through the twilight. "Ryan?" I asked. "Did you call the police?" "Yep," he popped the P. "I called them 10 minutes ago. I reported a stolen vehicle located via GPS. I told them the owner was en route with the title." We pulled up next to the police car. Greg was standing outside the van, looking frantic. He was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, gesturing wildly at a police officer. Inside the passenger seat of the van, a woman, Mandy, sat with her arms crossed, glaring out the window. I stepped out of the car, slamming the door. Ryan was right beside me. "Hannah!" Greg shouted when he saw me. His face went from panic to relief, then to annoyance. "Thank God. Tell this officer this is a huge misunderstanding. He thinks I stole the car." I walked up to him, stopping just inches away. I looked him up and down. He looked well-fed. He looked tanned. He looked like a man who hadn't spent a single second worrying about his wife in the hospital. "You did steal it," I said, my voice icy. "It's in your name," Greg argued, turning to the officer. "See? She admits it. But we're married. It's marital property. I just borrowed it for a trip." "Actually," Ryan piped up, stepping forward. His voice was loud and clear. "You filed for divorce via email, Dad. You abandoned the family and took a vehicle registered solely to Mom without permission to transport a mistress. That's unauthorized use of a motor vehicle." The officer looked down at Ryan, raising an eyebrow. Then he looked at me. "Ma'am, are you the owner?" "Yes," I said. "Here's the title and the loan agreement." I handed him the folder I had brought. He took the keys and emptied my bank account of $20,000 before fleeing the state. Greg turned pale. "Wait, hold on. I can explain. I didn't flee. We were just camping." "Give me the keys, Greg," I demanded, holding out my hand. "Hannah, come on," he pleaded, lowering his voice. "Don't do this in front of the cops. Mandy is inside. She's sensitive." "The keys," I repeated. "Now." He reluctantly dug into his pocket and dropped the keys into my palm. I unlocked the van and pulled open the passenger door. Mandy turned to look at me. She was younger than me, with bleached blonde hair and heavy makeup. She looked annoyed, not ashamed. "This is ridiculous," she scoffed. "Greg left you because I'm younger and more attractive. Get over it. He fell head over heels for me." "He fell for you?" Ryan laughed from behind me. "Or did he fall for the lie?" "Shut up, kid," Mandy snapped. "Go play with your toys." "Dad," Ryan said, ignoring her and turning to Greg. "Why is she so fat?" "Ryan!" I scolded automatically. "That's rude." "No, look." Ryan pointed at Mandy's stomach. She was wearing a tight tank top, and there was a distinct, rounded bump. She looks pregnant, like 6 months pregnant. Greg puffed up his chest, trying to regain some dignity. She is pregnant. We're starting a real family, a fresh start. The baby is due in 3 months. Silence descended on the campsite. The only sound was the crackling of the nearby fire and the hum of the police radio. Ryan tilted his head to the side, looking at his father with genuine pity. "Dad," Ryan said slowly, "you met her at the welcome party for new employees, right?" "Yeah, so?" Greg snapped. "That was 3 months ago," Ryan said. Greg stared at him. "So?" "If the baby is due in 3 months," Ryan explained, doing the math on his fingers for emphasis, "that means she has been pregnant for 6 months. Greg blinked. He looked at Ryan. Then he looked at Mandy's stomach. Then he looked back at Ryan. 3 months ago," Greg muttered. 6 months. "It takes 9 months to make a baby, Dad," Ryan said dryly. "If she's 6 months pregnant and you met 3 months ago, do the math." The color drained from Greg's face. It happened instantly, like a curtain dropping. He turned slowly to face Mandy. Mandy wasn't looking at him. She was looking at her nails, chewing her lip. Her face had turned a bright, guilty red. "Is that true?" Greg whispered. "Is the baby not mine?" Mandy rolled her eyes. "Ugh, you are so stupid!" she screamed, throwing her hands up. "Of course it's not yours. My ex-boyfriend kicked me out when I got pregnant. I needed a place to stay and someone to pay the bills. You were just an easy ticket. I can't believe a 10-year-old figured it out before you did." Greg looked like he had been punched in the gut. He staggered back, leaning against the van for support. You used me? I left my wife for you. I stole money for you." "And I appreciated the vacation," Mandy sneered. "But now that the money is gone and the car is gone, you're useless to me." You, Greg stammered, unable to form words. "Oh, and one more thing," Ryan said, checking his phone again. "They're here." "Who is here?" Mandy asked, panic finally entering her voice. Headlights swept across the campsite as another car screeched onto the gravel. It was an older sedan, driving fast. It skidded to a halt next to the police cruiser. 2 people jumped out, an older man and woman. They looked furious. "Mandy!" the man screamed. Mandy's eyes went wide. "Dad? Mom?" "Ryan called them," I realized aloud, looking at my son. "Yep," Ryan whispered to me. "I called them when we left the house. I told them their daughter was involved in Grand Theft Auto and was running away with a married man who stole his family's savings." Mandy's parents stormed over. Her mother was red in the face, shaking with rage. "You steal money from us, you run off, and now this?" her father yelled. "We told you, Mandy. If you cause trouble again, we are done." "Mom, Dad, wait!" Mandy cried, trying to hide behind Greg, but Greg stepped away from her, disgusted. "And you," Mandy's father turned to Greg. "You're the idiot who left his wife for this mess? You deserve each other." I didn't know," Greg whimpered. The police officer stepped in then. "Okay, folks, settle down. Ma'am," he turned to me. "You have the vehicle title?" "Yes," I said. "I want my car back, and I want to file a report for the theft of the funds." "Wait!" Greg begged, falling to his knees in the dirt. He looked from me to the police officer to Mandy's screaming parents. He realized he had nowhere to go. "Hannah, please. She tricked me. The baby isn't mine. I was a victim here too." I looked down at him. The man I had spent 10 years with. The man I had nursed through unemployment, through depression, through everything. He was on his knees, begging. Not because he loved me, but because he had been caught. "You weren't a victim, Greg," I said coldly. "You were a volunteer. You chose to leave. You chose to steal." "Let's just go back to how things were," he cried, reaching for my hand. "I'll come home. We can forget this happened. I'll make it up to you and Ryan." I pulled my hand away. "No, you're not coming home. You're homeless, and you're in debt." I turned to the officer. "I want to press charges for the theft of the $20,000. "Hannah, no!" Greg shrieked. "I'll go to jail! I won't be able to pay you back if I'm in jail!" I paused. He was right. If he went to prison, I'd never see that money again. And I needed that money for Ryan's future. "Fine," I said. "I won't press charges. On one condition." "Anything," Greg sobbed. "Anything." "You are going to pay me back every single cent of that $20,000, I said, plus interest, plus child support. "I don't have a job," he wailed. "I quit to travel." "I know," I said calmly. "But lucky for you, my company has a subcontracting factory nearby. They do heavy industrial packing. It's hard labor, it's minimum wage, but they are hiring. I already spoke to the manager on the way here." Greg's jaw dropped. The packing plant? Hannah, that's back-breaking work." "Then you better get started," I said. "I'll have a lawyer draw up the agreement. Your wages will be garnished and paid directly to me until the debt is settled. If you miss a single payment, I press charges. Do we have a deal?" Greg looked at the police officer, who was nodding in agreement. He looked at Mandy, who was being dragged into her parents' car, screaming. He looked at the luxury camper van he would never drive again. "Deal," he whispered. "Good," I said. I looked down at Ryan. He was watching his father with a look of finality. "You did all this?" I asked him quietly. He shrugged, slipping his phone back into his pocket. "Nobody messes with my mom." We drove the camper van home that night. I drove the sedan, and a friend I called drove the van. I sold the camper van the very next week. Since it was practically brand new, I got almost the full price back. I used that money to pay off the loan entirely. The debt was gone. With the financial weight lifted and the toxic stress of Greg removed from my life, my health improved rapidly. The arrhythmia cleared up, and I returned to work with more focus than ever. I was even promoted last month. As for Greg, he is currently working double shifts at the packing factory. He lives in a small studio apartment near the industrial district. He looks 10 years older. Every month, a check arrives in my account, a repayment for what he stole. Mandy's parents disowned her. I heard she moved 2 states away. Greg wants nothing to do with her or the baby. And Ryan? Ryan is doing just fine. We don't need a camper van to make memories. We have movie nights, we have science projects, and we have peace. Sometimes, when I look at him studying at the kitchen table, I remember the look on his face when he confronted his father. He is a genius, yes, but more importantly, he is loyal. If you enjoyed this story of how a 10-year-old outsmarted a cheater, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, what's the smartest thing you've ever seen a kid do? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.